Hello, welcome back. So I lied to you, I lied to myself, I lied to us all. I said that I wasn't going to play my TBR game in December. I was going to read my 10 before the end instead, and that was my plan, and that's not what's going to happen. What happened was I put my 10 before the end out there, it sounded great, and as soon as I published that video, I started coming up with reading projects for myself with some of those books for 2026. And then some of the other books all got tied up in reading projects like buddy reads for the month of December, probably going into January, to be honest. And so I am going to read all those books in my 10 before the end, just not right now. That's not totally true either. There are two books off of there that I'm not going to read right now, this month, the next month, anytime soon, and I'll talk about those probably in my December wrap-up video. But for now, I'm happy that I'm playing my TBR game as I go, because here we go. We're playing it, I'm playing it, we're picking some more books. And I thought about picking just half the number of books, because the month is half over, but then I was like, that defeats the purpose of playing it, and I've got this whole new, circle setup going on, and we've got to make use of that, and Unipiggy, and all the things. So let's just go with the flow and go with it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and play. I'm not going to explain my game. I'm going to assume that we're friends and you've been here for a hot minute. And if not, I'll link the playlist so you can see all the back episodes of this game. It's pretty straightforward. You'll get it as we play. I'm going to start with my deck of letter cards, and my first book out of all of the books that I'm going to choose that are going to total 3,000 pages of reading is going to start with the letter O. Okay. Let's see what Unipiggy decides my prompt is going to be. Dublin Literary Prize nominee winner. The Dublin Literary Award just recently came out. Does that mean I could pick something new off of this year's list? For a book whose title starts with the letter O and has been nominated or shortlisted or longlisted or won the Dublin Literary Award, I don't own any of them. And while I thought about buying the ones that were nominated this year, I felt like that was cheating. So it's a unicorn pick, but he had to show up at some point, so why not for the first book? That seems very ominous, but let's see what I pick out of here. It's going to be a book that you guys have chosen or voted on at some point earlier this year, so just as well to get another one in. Oh, The Power. Okay. Let's see. I wonder who picked that one. I'll have to look it up. I grabbed the book. It's The Power by Naomi Alderman, and this is a book that I'm pretty sure viewers voted on because they thought that the premise sounded really interesting. In fact, I think it might have only been one person who voted on it, and I don't remember who or exactly what the comment was, but I swear it was something along those lines. Anyway, I also think this book sounds interesting. It reminds me of Agalia's Daughter that I read maybe a year ago, where in that book, the gender roles, the traditional stereotypical gender roles, were reversed. In this book, you have the power dynamics between genders have been changed. Basically, the women and girls throughout the world, I believe, have one day ended up finding they all have the power. Or maybe they always had the power. That part I'm not clear on, but I know that the power is a power that they wield, I believe, in their hands. And I think it's electric power or some superhero type of situation, though they're not superheroes. Anyway, they have power and they can wield it for good or evil, of course. And it's just, sort of looking at how gender dynamics would change if you're looking at traditional gender roles, and it has been subverted because now a different gender is in the more powerful position, if you will. And I already have some thoughts going through my mind about what I think about that in terms of gender roles and powers and it being electrocution. Or I think it has to do with an electric power. Anyway, we'll see how this goes. This book is 382 pages long, and I'm glad to finally get to it. The next prompt is a book whose title needs to start with the letter U. Ooh, lovely. Oh, no. What am I talking about? I know which books I have whose titles start with the letter U. I don't know that I want to read any of those right now. Oh, be nice to me. Okay. You guys have to be nice to me. It's a viewer pick. Does that even make sense? No, it doesn't, because I already did a viewer pick for this month. Sorry. I'm going to go ahead and we're just going to re-roll. Repress. Continue a series. Continue a series? I thought we were friends. I thought we were going to be friends. I don't know how to feel about the fact that we're still over here and for the book whose title starts with the letter U. I mean, are we surprised? Was I really going to have a series or the next book in a series whose title starts with the letter U? No, I was not. So guess who's back? The unicorn. That's what U is for. You are going to pick something out of the unicorn. All right, I'll stop. All right, what's the next book? Ooh, oh, I read that one. Okay, yeah, let's just go back and pick another book prompt and another letter. All right, my next book needs to be a book whose title starts with the letter W. I should have made my little, circle of the world bigger, but okay, whatever, W. All right, let's see what Unipiggy does this time. Journey story. I can think of at least one, but I don't know if I want to read that one, but it is winter and I feel like it would be fitting. Ooh, let's go check it out. Okay, a book whose title starts with the letter W, and it needed to be a journey story. So a story where they're going on the journey or something like that. And I did have a book in mind that I thought was going to be the book that I was going to pick, which was going to be The Worst Journey in the World. I mean, journey's in the title. It just seemed to make sense. However, when I got over there, I was like, wait, I think in this other book that I've recently mentioned in a video that they go on a journey. And I looked at the back and I was right. So I get to put Watership down on my TBR, and this is by Richard Adams, and it tells the story of, I think, not just the rabbits in this community. I think all these anthropomorphic animals, yeah, very special creatures on their flight from the intrusion of man and the certain destruction of their home, led by a stout-hearted pair of brothers, they journey from their native land through the harrowing trials posed by predators. Wow, glasses. So yeah, I read this a long time ago, like maybe middle school, high school, and I've become interested. I think I said in my other video, maybe because I've been living around rabbits and reading this again. And I'm looking forward to seeing what my thoughts are on it this go round. This book is 474 pages long, and it's going to be on my TBR. My next book needs to start with the letter F? Ooh, you know which one I want it to be. Okay, come on. You can make it up to me. Oh, whoa. I was going to say isolated setting would have definitely worked, but this might be a good follow-up. For a book whose title starts with the letter F and needed to sound like it was a fairy tale, I almost feel like I'm cheating. I've been wanting to get this book on my TBR for a little bit. It's Fayne by Anne-Marie MacDonald. It's a pretty chunky book, but I feel like it's going to be great for wintertime. So this takes place in the late 19th century. It is about a father and daughter where the mother has died really early on when the young woman was, I think, just a child, as did, I believe, her sister. And so she's been raised by her father in kind of an isolated setting, which is why I said if it had stopped on isolated setting, I would have been okay to pick this as well. But the thing is that she's in this isolated situation. It's very foggy, strange environment, sounds kind of gothic, fairy tale-ish, removed situation, maybe being protected, maybe being kept from everybody, has a curious disease, and then Prince Charming / her tutor / somebody comes along and she decides that she wants to be educated, or he's educating her like a guy. Anyway, it sounds like a fairy tale to me. It sounds very complex. There's definitely a father and daughter relationship going on, and a mysterious, suddenly she's going to be cured. Yeah, it sounds sketchy and good and atmospheric, and I'm really looking forward to it. And it seems like something I'd be able to sit down and cozy up with, and also might be a really good long book to be able to pair with some of the buddy reads I have going on, because this is 722 pages long and has really pretty end papers. And yeah, is probably going to take me a good chunk of the month to read. My next book needs to start with the letter H. Ooh, okay, I'm just going to say it right now. Husbands is what I'd like. Let's see if I can morph this prompt into that book. Out of my comfort zone? Maybe. For the letter H, I needed a book that was outside my comfort zone. I said what I wanted to be. I mean, am I forcing it? Maybe. But it is contemporary fiction, which is outside my comfort zone. I don't tend to read a lot of contemporary fiction. It doesn't always work for me. I have the feeling this book is going to be a bit humorous and quirky, and I'm hoping that that will make it work for me. So I put The Husbands on here because this book just sounds wild and like it would be worth it. And basically what is happening with Lauren is that she comes home from work one day and a man opens her door and, it's her husband telling her about whatever, hello. And the only issue she's having is that she doesn't have a husband. And husbands are coming in and out of her attic. And she's trying to figure out why, as one would in that situation. And it just sounds like it's going to be an interesting ride. Everybody that I know who has read this has said it's like a funny, quirky book and really enjoyable. So I'm hoping that holds up for me and that I enjoy the humor. It is how many pages? I've got it all written down over here. 338 pages long. And it's definitely going to just be a fun, like, refresher in-betweener palate cleanser. That was the actual phrase I was looking for. The next book I'm going to pick is going to start with the letter W again. Okay, I've got a lot of W's. An adjective in the title? I mean, I had a lot of W's, but you didn't need to make it a weird one. For the letter W, I needed a book with an adjective in the title. And was I tempted to do Wuthering Heights? Yes, because I feel like withering's an adjective, right? No, because in the case of that book, it's the name of a place. I mean, could I have kind of forced it to work? Probably, but I wasn't going to. And I went with the wild geese, which I'm not upset about, because wild is describing the geese. Therefore, it's an adjective. And what do I know about this? It is a prominent Japanese novel, according to the back of this book, and tells the story of unfulfilled love set against the backdrop of dizzying social change accompanying the fall of the Meiji regime. So definitely in the same time period as Kokoro, which I read earlier this year. I think I was just discussing with another viewer books that were written in that time period, which I think would also be like the Makioka sisters, and that, I think this is a time period that I'd potentially be interested in. And if you saw my video that I made that was about the Edwardian period, same time period, different place. So I'm excited to get this on here. It's another shorter book, which will be a nice book to kind of fit in between the other things I have going on. And it's just 156 pages long, so it's pretty short, and I'm feeling very hopeful for this read. The next book is going to start with the letter E. Okay, I'm running out of E's that I feel like reading right now in this moment, but whatever. The last 10 years. This is a prompt for Herkiad. Okay. Oh. I can see them. And I'm pretty sure there's only one that was written in the last 10 years. I have a lot of classics that start with the letter E. For the letter E, I needed a book that was published in the last 10 years. This falls under the category of prompts that are going to help me fulfill the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do. Of course, I probably should have checked that to make sure I don't have a book that was published in the same year as this, but I'm pretty sure I don't. The first edition of this book was published in 2019, and that is The Ember Blade by Christopher Wooding. This is a work of high fantasy. It was originally self-published and then was eventually picked up by a major publisher. I don't know. I can't see which one, but I really need to put my glasses on. Anyway, this is a work that I picked up because it won, I want to say the SPFBO, or at least that's where I heard about it. But what really appealed to me about this book was that it is supposed to be very much inspired by Lord of the Rings, but a somewhat like more modern fantasy feel to it, with still all the traditional high fantasy tropes that you would expect from a Lord of the Rings sort of retelling or update, if you will. And I have also heard that it is better than like The Sword of Shannara, which is like another book that like feels like The Lord of the Rings, but like to the point of almost plagiarism in my opinion, and wasn't well done. I've heard that this is better on all fronts. It's a nice chunky book. I haven't been too into high fantasy, and this is a TBR vet, so I'm concerned that it's really not going to hold my attention, but I would rather try it and get it off my shelves than to let it just continue to sit there. It is super long at 824 pages long, so we'll see how long that takes me, but I'm looking forward to at least giving it a shot. All right, the next book needs to start with the letter H again, so all right, here we go. We went from the last 10 years to the last 100. Published in the 1900s. Okay. And my next book, I lost the letter card, but the letter was definitely H. And it needed to be published in the 1900s. I did find a book to match that. It's Hopscotch. This is a book that has been on and off TBRs, and I've been trying to fit in different places and just haven't gotten to. I feel like I've mentioned it multiple times this year, but it is a work of fiction by an Argentinian author. I think it goes back and forth between Argentina and Paris, maybe. And it follows the story of an author. Yep, an author and his mistress and their lives and entanglements, and it also like jumps around, I'm guessing, in their story, but the chapters also jump around. Like, you can read this book in multiple different ways. You can read it front to back, or there is actually like a given reading order where you jump around from chapter to chapter, and apparently it's a very different reading experience, and you come to very different conclusions based on that. I'm probably the first time going to read it front to back, but we'll see what I feel like when I get to it. This is going to be the last book on my TBR. It is 564 pages long, so that takes me well over the 3,000 page mark, and that is just fine because I do have two very chunky books on here, and being 500 pages isn't exactly a short book for this one. So let me show you my entire stack. I'm really happy that I did this, because I mean, I'm actually not upset that there's like some really long books on here, because I think that's going to work out really well given the number of buddy reads that I have going on in the next month or so. And the reason I say that is for my buddy reads, I tend to read about 50 pages a day. And unless we're reading a really difficult classic, I usually want another book to read with that. And so what I was ultimately finding was happening was that all I had was my buddy read, and I'd read those 50 pages first thing in the morning and then have no other book to work on for the rest of the day, because either all my other books were buddy reads or I was like already working through my other ones. So these are going to be like my alternatives to buddy reads, I guess, is this stack here. So the bigger books will work really nice. I like having a really long book to read while I'm doing a buddy read, because the buddy read gives me a break from the long book, but having the buddy read also allows me to keep reading and working on the longer book and, you know, kind of shake that up as well. So it's a good blend. I'm excited about these. We'll see how long it takes me. I'm guessing that with my buddy reads, I'll be reading these well into January, but who knows? Because, I mean, we all know how this whole video started and arrived because of my original lie saying that I wasn't going to have any other TBR for December, but alas, here it is. Let me know how your reading is going this month and what you're working on, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!